Hi everyone, Ben Redwood here from the FRSA. Just another video update on payment for availability. Quick update, we were involved in about 18 months of conversations with Devon and Somersert to talk about payment for availability, and in March this year, after balloting all of our members, we gave our support to the introduction of P4A. Just for information, 98% of our members that responded to the ballot agreed that P4A is probably the best thing for the on-call. Just to let you know, I'm out here today in Princetown on Dartmoor, because I thought this would be a brilliant place to talk about P4A, because I think it puts in context what we're trying to achieve. What I want to do is confront some information that's been put out by the FBU. Last week we learned that they were unable to reach an agreement with Devon and Somersert. They've put out some comms, and I feel that I really need to respond to this directly. One of the points that they've made is that the FRSA are unable to reach a local agreement. That is categorically not true, and I don't know if that arises from some basic misunderstanding on their part or a desire to cause confusion, but that is categorically not true. They've also referenced crewing models. Crewing models are not an integral part of P4A. Pensionability is already agreed, is clarified, and there is no national framework that could reach any kind of ratification on pensionability. Also, the Matzek case that went through the European courts 2.5 years ago, we cannot see how that has any relevance on P4A. The reason I really want to confront this is because this is really, really important. We've just come out of Safer Together, and the Fire Authority clearly had a mandate that on-call performance needed to improve wherever possible. And £3 million has been assigned to a budget to support the on-call. And on the back of Safer Together, the Fire Authority did note that they would revisit some stations if performance wasn't able to improve. So this is really, really important. And another really important part about P4A is it's a new way of working, and it gives us an opportunity to improve equality and diversity and get new people into our stations, people that previously would have been able to apply because of restrictive contracts. And so I want to put out a challenge today to the FBU, and please don't tell us what you can't agree to, but tell us what you want. What are you banging the table for your members to improve their conditions and improve the performance of the on-call, and to allow stations like this to support their communities, providing an invaluable service going forward. Thank you very much.
So we're going to give a presentation, or you guys are going to give a presentation with regards to the pilot that's taking place in Devon and Somerset at the moment. We've got a presentation that we've lifted from the service. So we've got Ben Redwood, who is our health and safety representative from the brigade and committee member. And we've got Mark Palmer, who is the FRSA chair for the brigade as well. And you've both, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've both been heavily involved in pulling this new pay model together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I have also worked it. I've been worked on it for about 3 months.
That's great. I think it would be really helpful, bearing in mind some people watching this video won't know anything about anything that's gone before within Devon and Somerset, and all the various trials that they've piloted in the past over a number of years, and the backstory to how we got to where we are. So how that model came into being, the package that it was contained within a recent IRMP, and the short-term and long-term objectives for the model going forward. If you could provide that information, I think that'd be really helpful just before we go into the presentation itself.
Ben, did you want to give a bit of background?
Yeah, so just to summarise it, it's about improving availability and looking at different, more flexible contracts, and importantly, contracts which are much smaller in size. So with pay for availability, smallest contract is minimum contract is 32 hours. So and that gives, so one of the things we've seen a lot in Devon and Somerset, which I think is a national trend, is availability issues during daytimes. But if somebody came to a station and said, I can give you cover between 9 till 3 in the daytimes, traditionally the service wouldn't have been able to recruit them because our smallest contract was 63 hours. But now with that kind of contract, it allows you to recruit the right people for the right times and pay them for their hourly time. And it's as simple as that.
Mark, did you want to add anything there?
Yeah, this has come from a number of years of work and talking with the service on both parts, looking at it, and we had a couple stations trial, have a little bit of a pilot of it about 18 months prior, and that's where then some of the workings come from. So yeah, it was really a joint effort between the service, ourselves, to get to where we are. So yeah, that's what it's about.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll start the slideshow, and as we go through, if you'd like to talk about each slide, if that's okay. Let me just make sure I bring the right one up.
Okay, so this is the background. So availability is about day and night, and in certain areas. 90% of our response capability is reliant on call. And obviously there's retention issues we've had over the number of years. And we turn over about 130 on-call firefighters a year. What we wanted is obviously fair pay for commitment, where the old retaining fee was very low per hour for the commitment. You could spend a lot of time waiting around, no calls, not really financially being very well off. The contract is flexible to attract more, to have a diverse workforce, and we're looking for a long-term fix to this rather than just over the years we've been trialing different things and sticking a plaster over a problem. So we're looking for this as long-term. Recruitment will be improved, accessibility to like a more attractive package. So that's what was the background to this project.
So just an additional note there about the retention. So we turn out, so within Devon and Somerset, we're replacing 2 on-call firefighters a week on average, and that's costing about £15,000 per person just to get them on the run. And then out of those people that we recruit, we're losing about 40% of them before they've done 5 years. And the on costs of that are massive. So the service has chosen to invest some of that money ahead of time into the workforce, try and keep them. And if we're if we're replacing so many people, that means that you don't end up with the drivers and the OICs and the experience that are needed for the on-call station's long-term survivability.
So the problems you face in Devon and Somerset are broadly similar to the problems other services are facing that have a considerable establishment of on-call firefighters. Great. So this will be of interest not just to Devon and Somerset, not just to the Southwest region, but nationally, broadly speaking, nationally.
Very much so, I would have said, yeah.
So what is pay for availability? So it's a new style duty system. You're paid by the hour for the actual hours of availability. So what it does is we look at the retaining fee, disturbance fee as set out in a grey book, and the actual payments are better than that. So the minimum contract of 30 hours, day cover hours, is equivalent to the old grey book paying conditions set out in the old way. The hours are set out station based, so it depends on the number of appliances is how many hours is needed to cover, and it becomes like an on-call contract for all, really, which allows, like Ben said earlier on, the smaller contracts, if you can only give 30 hours during the week between 9 and 3, we can actually accommodate that now. So, Ben, do you want to add to that?
So I think a point about it is that the availability hours of availability will change each week, so it's not locking somebody into a weekly commitment that they will give X number of hours at between X time. It's based on your availability and what you can offer up.
But just on that, Ben, I assume there's an element of mutual understanding that the availability you provide is the availability that is actually needed, because just saying that you can change your hours from week to week sounds fantastic, but there must be an element of the hours that you provide is the hours that the station actually needs, I guess.
Yes. So when you sort of move on to it or apply, then you identify a pro forma of what kind of hourage you can give, and to some degree that is managed, but it's not like the salary system where you are contracted to give a very rigid structure of hours, because again it's a two-way conversation, isn't it? And it's about ending contracts which become prohibitive to people.
And the retained duty system, to use its old-fashioned term, is all about flexibility, isn't it?
Yeah. But just go back to that point about making sure that it meets everybody's needs. I think the dream and the vision for pay for availability is that if you're paying £3 an hour during daytime, is that, and certainly this is what I've seen, is that there are people that are queuing up to book on for those hours. So if one person can't do it, you can be sure that there'll be somebody else who'll be saying, yeah, I'd like to boost my hourly income rate by an extra £3 an hour. And in the context of where we are, if you're on a low or middle wage, getting a £3 an hour pay rise by giving cover to your local on-call station, it certainly makes a difference.
So there's obviously a split between premium day cover and standard night cover. Can you just cover that area, please?
So this has been an area that has caused some contention, and some people, clearly some people have raised the point about fairness. But I think if we look at what the service needs, and I think it's fair for a service to say its business need is, and that is that during daytime hours, that's when they need to up the payment level in order to attract the people to fill those gaps. I think I imagine that nationally we see the same picture, where daytimes are hard to cover and night times we have too many people. So like any business, the service has to provide a need and get something done.
And I think not only that, I was speaking with the deputy of another brigade who's taken an interest in what Devon and Somersert are doing, and have come up with their own version. Talks with them suggested that not only do they have problems, the generic problem of Monday to Friday 9 till 5, but they're now also seeing problems Friday nights, Saturday nights, when the younger generation want that free time to go out and socialise, etc. So presumably this can be tailored to accommodate that requirement as well.
Yes, I think early doors there was conversations about whether individual stations could tailor where their point of greatest need was. So if they're a station and they're full of people during daytimes, but yeah, they have a particular set of problems across the weekend, then yes, why wouldn't. So that was a conversation, but I think that then became overcomplicated. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's about paying that. I mean, and that point about, certainly in Devon and Somersert, we've seen a lot of quiet stations where you have people on call across the weekend and they don't get any calls, and they effectively don't earn anything, whereas at least with this, with a combination of because remember, the £3 an hour daytime rate isn't just weekdays, it's also weekends. So putting yourself on call for a weekend, I think it works out to be something like £100.
Yeah, so the actual hourly rate is worked out on a percentage of the hourly rate of a firefighter, the 14%. And that's the reason why that's done, is because it's linked to the pay rises we have annually. So it will automatically be worked out as part of the pay agreements going forward.
So there's some structure there with regards to the pay. This has clearly been thought through, and it's not a case of, well, this is what fits the purpose now, but they're looking into the future to make sure that there will be increments going forward.
Yes, that's right as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide people will want to see. Do you just want to talk through how these figures have been formulated?
Yeah, so like I said, it's a percentage, so that it's 14% of the hourly rate, and then it's split between the day cover, which is 10 hours, which is 60% of that value, and then the 14 hours, other hours, is 40% of the value, and that's how it's split. So for day cover, for a competent firefighter, is £2.93, where night cover is £1.39. So that's a 60-40 split. So that's how it's worked out. So, and basically, like Ben said, if you're doing 2 days of the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, based on a firefighter rate, that then works out at £29.30 for the 10 hours during the day for both days. And then if you're doing nights as well, it's well over the £100 if you're staying around for the weekend.
Okay. Ben, did you want to make a comment on that slide?
No, and I'm sure we'll get there, but also to note that you do still, if you do get a shout and you get turned out, you still get a payment on top of that as well. So that's an hourly rate payment, plus your availability payment keeps on accumulating as well. So if you got called out during a daytime, you'd be on your firefighter rate of £14.50 plus your availability rate of £2.93. So you're on an hourly rate of nearly £18 for a call out.
So in terms of the crewing requirements, how does that work in practice?
So obviously we're sticking to a standard crew of 5, and if it's a 2-pump station, it's 5 plus 4. Minimum crewing will be 4. However, the service will carry on paying. If crewing drops below 4, it will carry on paying for as long as you have a crew of 2, which includes a driver, an EFAD driver. So the only time you wouldn't get paid is if the station drops below that minimum of 2 people and a driver. Now, as things currently stand in Devon and Somerset, that's not to say that you would get mobilised with 2 people, but what the service sees you as there as a resource, should there be a significant incident develop, then potentially they could ask you to locate to a rendezvous point and to be part of standby moves, or potentially add personnel to an incident. So there is a buffer there to ensure people don't find themselves on call but not getting paid.
Yeah, so just to add into that a bit, and being on call for a number of years, and a lot of people realise this, that if you are part of a below minimum crew, you have an incident in your town or village, before you'd be at home, off the run, and there's an incident going on around you. By this, even if there's 2 people around, then they need more resources, you can be part of that incident. So you'll be mobilised as alongside of other resources. So that's the idea in it as well. So you will be mobilised to the incident in your town and village, even though you're below minimum crewing.
So this next slide, it focuses on what Ben was saying earlier with regards to the pay for work activity as well. So the figures in the previous couple of slides about focused on availability, which I think from, again, looking at the old returning fee, used to come to around about 40p an hour to be on call, whereas now you're looking for a rate of £3 an hour. So a significant improvement.
Yeah, so that averages just with the the day and night cover is about just over £2 an hour, if you do 50-50 split on premium hours as such, day cover hours and night cover hours. So there's another thing about this slide here that says about special appliance crewing. Even though pay for availability wasn't part of the specialist appliances, because the specialist appliances are being reviewed as we speak, there's a number of appliances they do need covering through pay for availability because the services need them available. But then there's other special appliances that aren't really crewed. Now, we've actually included that into the package that if people are not being paid for pay for availability, that they could still be mobilised on those special appliances and still receive an hourly rate for any activity undertook, even though they're not on the pay for availability for that appliance.
Okay. So that's another benefit as well, whereas before they would not form part of the original crew and therefore miss out for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, or possibly, or if the old method is if you only need 6 people, 5 people for a pump, then you have 12 people available, and it's a fight to the door who's going to ride. With this, you know who's riding the appliance, and if you're extra crewing, you know you're only riding a special, so you know exactly what you put yourself forward for.
And I guess that also provides advantages with regards to mixing who's driving, mixing who's going out in charge, so that you haven't got the same people doing the same roles every show.
Yeah, so this is a massive benefit to pay for availability because it's basically rostering a little bit of crew on and off. So instead of we get it a lot where you have the same crew riding 90% of the time, and you don't get that. So you get the same drivers, same incident commanders. This now gives a fair split of the calls right across the station. So you get what you put yourself forward for, what percentage of that.
And also the individuals that live furthest away from the station have got more of a chance of actually riding the pump, whereas under the old system, they probably would be getting attendances more often than not.
Yeah. So there's a big health and safety gain there in that experience and competence is shared out more equally. And also improvement in work-life balance can be seen as a big health and safety improvement as well. And that also looking at people's reasons for leaving the on-call is often people spend a lot of time on call but never riding appliances because it is the same six that ride.
So Ben, very early on you spoke about the number of hours to provide availability. I noticed straight away there's quite a change. Whereas before you're looking at the 75%, 100%, which some services look at a minimum of 90 or 84. Whereas here we're looking at a minimum of 30, which provides a huge amount of flexibility.
Yeah, and I think that reflects the change in society. I mean, as I see it, talking to new recruits, asking them to give 90, 120 hours a week for them with their lifestyles, their hobbies, their interests, a number of things they're committed to each week, it's just unrealistic. And I think this is far more like a realistic ask, and an ask that can last for years and isn't likely to burn somebody out or destroy their marriage, or any of the things that we've seen with some of the older on-call systems.
Yeah, there's one thing on this slide I want to point out, and it's we have a lot of questions asked about this, about no pay for anyone if appliance is unavailable. Now, obviously, the service, they're paying the on-call a lot more for this process, and what they want is the appliances available. So, what, like Ben said earlier on, that you find normally because the pay is more, is better, people will put themselves out more. So we're hoping that the appliances won't be unavailable, so everybody will be paid. But that's down to you to manage within your station, to try and keep that going all the time, and then that's a benefit to the service. So this was a bit of a negative, but a very small negative compared with the positives out of the old lot. And the The other bit that we found was really good about this process was the calculation of holiday leave. Rather than taking a 24-hour block when you only needed half a day off, you can do this. So leave now is calculated by the hour rather than by a 24-hour block. And exactly the same with sick pay and restricted duties. That's based on a 12 weeks previous activity. So it's all as the old traditional contract in a way, sick leave and that in the same way.
Okay, this is quite a busy slide here, so hopefully you'll provide some clarity as to what all this means.
Yeah, so what this means is if you look at the top line, total number of personnel, so it goes up to 1 to 22. So what it's actually saying that if one pump station, if you had 7 people, because basically you need 840 hours a week cover. So with 7 people, all on 120 hours, could achieve pay for availability, and everybody be on the maximum pay that they could receive for that station. However, what it's demonstrating that you can still support a one pump with 38 if everyone done 38 hours. So the bottom line is everybody does 38 hours. You need 22 people to do it, and that maintains that one appliance 24/7. And then you've got the combination of different contracts or number of hours between that. So you will have a combination of 120 down to 30 hours. That's where the rostering and the managing of the process becomes a little bit of a challenge. But once you get that process in place, it's there. So, but it's just demonstrating how many people you need to maintain one appliance against the hours. The on-call station one pump normally is 10 to 12 personnel at the moment, and if you look at that, everybody should be doing 84 hours really. So again, that's just demonstrating how it works to have the equal share on that.
So the benefits both for the service and for the employees.
Yeah, so for the service, obviously they want to get better availability and a bit more control over the availability, so they can manage their resources a bit more. And the benefit from that is then cover moves and stuff like that. They can plan what other stations are doing, focus more on prevention, protection work as well, and that. So they have a greater understanding of resources there. Obviously, there is an increase, a large increase on the budget, so everybody or most stations, most personnel stations will have a significant pay rise. However, the service know how much it's going to cost to keep that appliance on the run every day, where at the moment, budget for the retaining fee, you haven't really got that. More diverse workforce, again, because we're opening up the system to people that can only just give us those 30 hours during the day. So that's that there. And the benefits for the firefighters is better pay for individuals, obviously more flexible contracts, and improved work-life balance. So when you're not rostered on, you're actually off. You're off duty, and that's a strange thing for an on-call firefighter, because when they're home, they're always on duty. This actually will improve that, because when you're not required, you're not required. Takes the pressure off.
So there was one big thing that you said within all of that, Mark, that there was a large increase in the budget. So obviously there's the fire authority, because Devon and Somerset is run by a fire authority, has obviously made a huge investment into its on-call staff, which is welcomed. How difficult was that to argue for, both from the service and from the rep bodies?
I think it's about, looking at the bigger picture of what is costing the organisation for having appliances that's off the run. and it's about efficiencies then. So overall, it is a big increase on the budget, but it's providing a far better and more efficient service. So it's balancing the two up.
Ben, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, so I was just going to totally reaffirm that point that Mark made about, can you justify paying for appliances that are off the run? But also just look at the history of the on-call. Most counties are operating a system that hasn't been updated for about 25 years. So although it has required an investment, I think it's an investment that's well overdue. And if you look at the competing interest and commitments that people have throughout their life, throughout their week, I think I've been involved in recruitment, and a lot of people kind of are expecting something for the huge skill set that our new recruit firefighters are expected to have to acquire and maintain. There has to be, in this day and age, a professional recompense for that. I think the other point is that although it has required investment, I think some of that will be reaped back as hopefully the retention improves, and we're not losing 2 on-call firefighters a week and replacing them.
And as with any major change in an organisation, there's going to be challenges. So what have been the challenges for both the employees and the service?
Well, like it says on this slide here, culture change. The on-call, if you're on-call firefighter, it's a way of life. It's a second family. You're there giving 100% commitment all the time, even though we're not needed. Where this is, you on call, you are on call. You're going to provide the fire appliance. You're off call. You're off call. The pressure's off you. So there's a bit of a culture change on that. A bit more of a structured approach to your booking on and off. So that will change slightly, where you have to think a little bit more. But then you're getting a bit paid more to put yourself out for that bit more. So there's obviously workload for the station managers to roster and sort the pay claims out and stuff like that. So there are some challenges there that it's being worked out. And obviously with modern systems, IT systems, and that's going to get better as this is rolled out. And we're already seeing improvements in that area already.
So I can talk a little bit about that. So ideally, everybody uploads their availability roughly 7 to 10 days in advance of that period commencing. And what the service have created is a tool for managers to use to ensure that if they're taking people off call, it's done in a fair way, so that across the month, everybody is equally taken off call in relation to the availability that they give. But what the roster allows you to do is to identify who was available and has been taken off call. So if then close to time somebody is unable to give the hourage they'd committed to, in theory there's somebody else that should be available and can back it up. And also I think part of the cultural change is seeing that although 5 people have been rostered on, if somebody is unavailable, but people have backup systems in place so someone else can drop in and back them up if necessary.
So in terms of the implementation, obviously the preferred approach has been collective agreement with all recognised rep bodies. How has that worked in practice?
So obviously that's where we struggled a bit, and even though we worked alongside the other rep bodies to come up with this and work together to get where we are now, it still hasn't been agreed with the other organisation. So the early adopters is more of a voluntary agreement at the moment, where we've signed a collective agreement. It doesn't cover all staff. So basically it's going through as an interest from stations. When we canvassed our members, we had a 98% say yes, they wanted to go with it. So that's why we signed our collective agreement. And looking at that now, a number of stations across Devon and Somerset have said yes. There's a handful of stations at the moment are still not too sure yet. However, the service has decided to do a phased approach, so early adopters, and they're running out 6 stations, I believe, Ben, isn't it? 6 stations a month. So they've got a number of stations lined up every month as people are going over to it. It's been going now since, I believe, October. I think we've got 18 stations on there at the moment. And all the feedback so far is positive. Like anything new, you will still have some little issues that you need to just sort out. But 90% of it is going fine.
So the key thing I take from that is if somebody in Devon and Somerset wishes to be part of the trial, join the FRSA.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And like with anything, there are going to be teething problems. There are going to be bumps in the road. But if this was easy, it would have been done a long time ago. So I think the service has got to be commended for what it's done. The Fire Authority has to be commended. This has been formulated collaboratively with the rep bodies, even though one's not signed up to it collectively with a collective agreement as yet. But clearly it's met with a very, very positive response from the vast majority of on-call firefighters across the service.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
I agree, and obviously Mark has identified that the FBU haven't signed off on this. As I can see it, they haven't provided any clear logical reason as to why not, and I think that's very regrettable, because I think that the on-call desperately needs a transition into 2020 and some ways of working that really align with what new recruits and the new generation need. I think for the stations that haven't yet signed up, I think they tend to be the busier stations where I think you have a small group who are riding appliances a lot and perhaps can't see how they would transition across onto that. But I certainly think one thing I think we've found unanimously is if you go out and talk to watch managers about if they're recruiting, what do they want to be talking about to potential recruits? It is pay for availability. The idea of giving up your life 120 hours for 40 pence an hour doesn't seem to chime with many people these days. But you talk to people about a proper work-life balance with a proper hourly recompense for what you do and the skills you acquire, then that's when it begins to look good.
So, as is very often the case, we say there isn't a one-size-fits-all. My guess is there are some stations who have 100% availability or near on, who are quite happy with the status quo. And I don't think anyone should have a problem with that, should they?
But the only thing is with that is you have a station that's 100% reliable, so they're on the run all the time. But you normally find it's the first 5 or 6 people all the time as riding a fire appliance. The remainder of the station want pay for availability so they can have an opportunity to ride as well. So, and that's where you've got a bit of a split at the moment. The organisation saying they want 100% to agree to it on a station, where you haven't got that when you've got afters and people that's riding all the time.
Well, that was a fair summary of paper availability. No doubt anybody watching this video will have the odd unanswered question. Are you okay if we forward any further questions that might be directed through us that we can forward on to you for answering?
Definitely.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Okay, that's absolutely brilliant. Let me just come out of that. So I just wanted to thank you both for your time on that, and I wish you every success in Devon and Somerset moving this forward, because I think genuinely if it is a success in Devon and Somerset, there's going to be other services that are going to look at having something very, very, very similar in their own service to overcome the availability problems that pretty much every brigade faces.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
So just thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks to Ben, thanks for Mark, and for everyone to take care and stay safe and well.